Episode 5. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We are in episode 5 of Jessica Jones. We're going to talk about it right here. Good, bad, nitpicks, questions. You know the deal. Let's hit it, right? The good thing of this episode was a bit of a backstory episode, and I like that. We got backstory on pretty much most of the people here. We got some flashbacks. The flashback started at the very beginning of this episode, showing Jessica Jones, or pretty much all the flashbacks, but certain ones, they show Jessica Jones in different types of jobs. Her in a cubicle, in an office workspace, and she hating that job and wanted to get fired, and her being, a flyer girl, just as a sandwich in New York City. But these flashbacks were pretty much all leading up to right before she, met Killgrave. When Killgrave met Jessica, it sounds like a good romantic comedy, just turned down the dark path. Now, what I've been like about Jessica Jones is that it's definitely Marvel's most grounded show. It's showing you, some real world situations. Malcolm is obviously a drug addict, and they made a joke of it about Requiem for a Dream, but that's not necessarily it's a joke in the show. But obviously, there's people with real addictions that some people care for, and they want to help them kick the habit. But yeah, it turns out that Killgrave actually was, mind controlling him, and he actually was a nice guy, but then Killgrave kind of made him this junkie, and then now he's kind of addictive, and he's made these choices. He said it himself, it was revealed that he actually made these choices. Now, he wasn't his fault. Jessica Jones tried to give him an ultimatum to, kick the habit, and it seemed like he's starting to do that, and that's good. This episode made you kind of feel more for Malcolm. Now, granted, I haven't really been caring for him, but this episode made me care a little bit more after seeing, what Killgrave has put him through. And Killgrave puts people through a lot of bad shit. Now, we see his thing, and then that happens. But then, of course, Jessica Jones, Trish, and now this cop, which apparently is their inner circle, we get Trish's first scene, and, last week she needed protection, apparently with a gun. This week she may need some other, protection, if you know what I mean. But that's not here nor there. We get a very good wetting scene, part of my words, but with Trish when we kick it off, and now her and this cop are apparently dating. I didn't necessarily like the cop in this past in episode 4. In this episode, he was a bit more better because we got to see him in a bit more action. We now know that he is a former special ops guy. He has training, so he's not just some cop. Now, a negative on his thing is a couple of things. Just a slight nitpick, but it's also more of just a thing. One, this guy makes some very weird facial expressions, and his accent is still kind of all over the place, for me at least. He's kind of like doing like this, and it kind of looks like he's like, he kind of looks like he has peanut butter on like the underneath of his mouth. So to me, his facial expressions are very odd. Also, for some reason, I liked the banter between Jessica Jones and him when they were in the glass case, showing, how they were going to put Killgrave in there. I liked that. It was like the bullshit banter. They smiling, and they're talking about each other, and that was a very nice thing. Because sometimes, you have to have these conversations with each other. Maybe he acts a bit more, maybe he acts way too many questions, and maybe could be some motives. Maybe he's not so trustworthy. You never know with these things. Trish, in this episode, she wasn't as stupid, right? That's a positive. But she was as, down on herself as ever. To me, they're showing her that she's not an important part of, I guess you could say, the group, because she can't fight. Now, to me, in the first few episodes, as I said in the previous one, they were showing her as like this badass in the making, right? And what I also like was that in the flashbacks, they were showing her, kind of teasing Jessica Jones' costume, and then they were also teasing Trish possibly becoming a hero in the future. Those were nice. Those were nice to see in the flashback scenes. Like I said, they give you enough backstory. Now, for Trish kind of feeling down on herself, to me, that didn't necessarily work because it doesn't really make sense. It's almost like these Netflix episodes are out of order, because in the first few, she was fighting, right? She was like, I heard the gun clock, do it again. And I was like, okay, that was impressive. And then, then she didn't want Jessica Jones' protection. She didn't want anybody touching her unless she wanted to be touched. So that was interesting. And then now, the last episode, and now this one, she's kind of like the victim, which is weird. To me, I think it would have been better if you put kind of like the victim episodes with her against the cop, and then, this previous episode where she's starting to feel like she's not a big part of the group, You put them first, and then you put where she starts becoming a badass in the making, and then eventually becomes the hero because they're constantly mentioning that she's gonna put the cape on, whatever. But you get the point. Some things I didn't really like. I didn't really like the references to the Avengers. I get it. The Avengers are in this world. We all get it. I think we all know Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Cage, Punisher. They're all connected. We don't even know that. And also, how random was it that a kid was... Now, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Halloween. It wasn't a flashback. So how awkward was it, and weird, to me at least, that the kid was wearing a Captain America outfit in not Central Park, on 14th Street or whatever it was, the park. I thought that was weird. It's not even Halloween, and he's wearing a costume. There was no Jerry, so there's no need to talk about that. But I will say this: since Jerry was not there, and since there's subplots, and I meant to mention this in other videos, the subplots weren't really working. And I think since Jerry's subplot was not in this episode, I think it did kind of show that is kind of like one of the weaker parts of this episode. Speaking of subplots, Hope's story, we got a bit more on her. Jessica Jones went to jail to visit her because Hope called her to bring some money, and then Hope just really started to act like a bit of a bitch by, not, I guess saying thanks or whatever. She was acting very bitchy. Jessica Jones is the only one really trying and believing her to get her out of prison. She brought her money, she gave her that to help her out, and then I hope it's just like, yeah. She's just shoving her off. To me, it's just like, are you that stupid? She's trying to help you, Nimrod. And then also some of the scenes with Hope in the prison, it kind of reminded me of also a Netflix show, Orange is the New Black. I don't know if they wanted to just throw that in there. I get it, Netflix is a little bit more darker and whatnot, but to me, it kind of reminded me of that. So I thought that was funny, when she's like attacking her. She even looked like the main character for Orange is the New Black. But yeah, also I liked it when we finally got to see that Malcolm, Killgrave, and also Jessica Jones all slightly met each other at the exact same time. So I thought that was a nice, interesting thing to kind of like rewind back. We saw when they very first met, she was saving Malcolm, and then Killgrave just like popped up, and then that was the moment he became obsessed. He was forever linked to Jessica Jones. But later on, the Cobb, Trish, and then Jessica Jones, they all come up with this plan to get the antiseptic or the unconscious drug, whatever it is, to Killgrave and shoot him in the neck. So they're going to do it in plain daylight. Jessica Jones is following Malcolm, the leader to Killgrave. They find him. The plan's about to go bad, but the cop gets him. Jessica Jones distracts him. They shoot him in the neck. But what happens? They get him. Great. But apparently Killgrave had backup in mind because, those guys took him back and he was not captured. And then they lost him, and then blah, 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 whatever happened. So obviously that was a big fuck up, I guess. But there are some just like coincidences. Like he knew she had the drug. He knew he was going to be in trouble. He hired these guys ahead of time. It's just like some things kind of fall into coincidence territory, and then you can't really buy that. Now I'm going to have to look down. If I look down, I'm looking at notes just so you know I'm not dazing off. So some other things, as I said, I liked the cop's backstory. Yeah, how can I say? Most likely, I don't really like Malcolm's hair. For some reason, it just kind of bugs me. Like, I feel sorry for the guy, but that doesn't give him... And the thing is, when they show the backstory, his hair is always looking like shit. To me, I just thought that was funny because his hair looks terrible. It looks like a Brillo pad. If anybody knows what a Brillo pad is, when you're, like, scraping the thing off of, like, anything that's really hard to surface to get off, like, a pan or whatever, that's a Brillo pad. His hair looks like a goddamn Brillo pad. So that's terrible to me. Some things that I really, also can add to it. Malcolm's on his way to kicking a habit. The Killgrave gave Jessica Jones, an ultimatum to. Also, he gave Jessica Jones his ad campaign. Send a picture, save the, junkie. He said, I will leave Malcolm alone if you just give me constant pictures of yourself. And then that's just showing how obsessed he is with her. It started to become a little bit creepy here, but then I guess that's the point of his character. Like I said, I hope they don't kind of just half-ass it when they finally do come one-on-one with each other. I hope it's actually a good battle. But now she did send this picture. She didn't know what to do. Malcolm is actually kicking the habit. She handcuffed him, to go cold turkey. And it looked like he threw the drugs down that she gave him. He's on his way. So congratulations. shave, get a haircut. Malcolm can kick the habit. How about that? But then yeah, she sends him the pictures. He's loving it. He's got her on his wrapped around his pinky. Seems like she cares. So Killgrave is in control, and I guess that's the whole point. He mentioned that he was powerless for a bit, and it was actually quite riveting. So that's an interesting thought. Also, another thing, is yeah, they send the pictures. It was a funny line. Send the pictures, save the junkie for his ad campaign. But pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that was pretty much all I really liked about it. I've been hearing some people on the internet kind of like talk about they're kind of backlashing the show. I don't know why. I think because it's different and maybe it's a bit slow paced. I just have to kind of address the critics here by saying, if it's slow paced, that's great. If it's a female oriented show, then that's great. If every superhero thing in the world was the same, then it would be boring as shit. When Nolan was doing his dark thing, there was a bunch of other imitators that tried to do the thing. It didn't work. It started to get boring. We have to have light. We have to have slightly dark. We have to have really dark. We have to have the mesh of a world. This is a different world. This is a real world of sorts. The most grounded world Marvel has ever done. And this is what Netflix is doing. They're showing a real world mesh on top of the superhero world. You throw that together and you got a great show. That's Jessica Jones. Does it need a good lead? Sure. A male lead? Maybe. You could throw a male audience member in there, but David Tennant's good enough. We don't need a hero. Jessica Jones is the hero. It's called Jessica Jones, not Jessica Jones and, male sidekick. My point is Jessica Jones is good enough show to not change this thing. Hopefully they stick to it. We're episode 5, and hopefully, it stays on this path. Can it kick up a bit more, pick up the faster pace, and stop teasing with these certain things? Sure. Start with the Avengers represents. We know they're alive in this world. We get it. But other than that, I actually enjoyed this episode. I thought this episode was actually much better than episode 4, in my opinion. And yeah, comment, subscribe, like that shit. You know it. I'm Chris Smith. I'm signing out. I'm doing episode 6 and 7 tomorrow. You heard?